The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
It is magic time! Hello and welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I'm the other host, Warren Van.
It is episode 55 of the Warren and Bradley Show, coming at you on Sunday, December 9th. Is it December 9th?
Why are you mentioning the date we're
I don't know,
recording?
because somebody mentioned to me the other day that they complain about the topicality of the show, and which I guess I can get their criticism because it's a once-a-week show.
Yeah.
And so we recap, maybe if we're talking about celebrity news or something, we recap something that happened during the week. But it's
This isn't a news show.
No, it's not a news show. It's not like a daily radio show where we're not journalists. we might find things that we want to discuss, but they were complaining that, like, I never know when you're actually recording, and so you might say that something happened today or happened Monday, but I don't know what day you're talking about in reference to the day.
All right, it's Sunday today.
It is Sunday, and
it's
it is
a drizzly
December
day
9th,
out
while we're recording.
Yeah.
It is exactly 2:55 p.m. on Sunday, December 9th.
Last I saw, the Seahawks are beating the Cardinals.
Oh, wow. So you've been watching football. How's your fantasy football league going?
I'm having a poor day right now. It's playoff time.
Yeah.
So I'm in the playoffs, but my players are underperforming today.
So why is it that the fantasy league, your fairy tale football league, doesn't go 16 games?
Well, because
like the pros.
Well, you have the regular season in football, right? Which is like 17 weeks because everyone has a bye week.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Of course. So if you're going to have a playoff system within your fantasy football league, you have to have regular season games in which to have the fantasy
because
football.
not everybody makes
Exactly.
it to the
Not all your
playoffs,
players will make it to the playoffs.
That makes perfect sense.
So you actually wrap up your season in fantasy football at the end of the regular season in normal football.
I see.
If you have any fantasy football questions, make sure to send them in.
To podcast at Warren and Bradley Show.
I actually don't understand how fantasy football works. That's the problem. I knew I was getting into the playoffs possibly, but I actually didn't understand the playoff structure before I got in and was just kind of stumbled into this week. And
So
found
you
out.
are in the playoffs, then?
I am in the playoffs. I'm not sure if it runs, if it's a 2-week thing right now or a 1-week game, but I think it might be a 1-week game, and then if I win, I move on. But I'm not absolutely certain.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm,
And you get a cash prize at the end of all this.
I will get a cash prize if I win. It's not looking good right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that every Warren and Bradley Show listener is sending good thoughts your way so that the Victorian Dandies clinch the title at the end of your fairy tale
Maybe
football
we should
league.
start selling merch for the Victorian Dandies. We'll sell pennants.
Maybe we should.
And, yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Do they still make those big foam finger things?
Yeah, a big, like, foam finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, a, like, dainty one that's kind of, like, bent over.
It'll be like a kid glove with a button
Yeah.
on it.
That'd be great.
I like that. We got some celebrity news this week. I don't have a Street Freak of the Week this week. They've been working overtime lately, and I think they all need to take a break because they've just...
Well, it's the holiday season.
It is the holiday season. I think a lot of them have to go home and visit their families.
They hop on the tracks and head south?
Kind of sad.
Maybe?
No, I think they've been putting a lot of time in. I've had a wealth of choices for Street Freaks lately.
You feel like there's a fall off in Street Freak interactions during the winter?
During the winter months, I don't know, because we have a fairly mild climate, but it does still get pretty cold and wet and horrible during the winter.
Yeah, it's not like really cold, but it is like annoying to be outside and be
Right.
rained on and have wind blowing in your face
So I don't know.
constantly.
I don't know where they go. Maybe they go to the sunnier climes, to go down to Southern California or something.
There has to be some sort of like annual migration of
They winter in
homelessness,
Phoenix.
right?
I don't know. Yeah.
There must be some demographic shift where people
We
move
do.
south.
I mean, we've talked before about how we do have a higher per capita street freak ratio than most places around
Yeah.
here. And I don't know if that's just because of the programs available to them or proximity to the border. Like you can't get any further north.
I think
than
it's
us.
a temperate climate and the fact that, there's nowhere to go from when you get right
Right.
here. The only way you can go is south.
Pretty much.
Yeah, otherwise you're blocked off, so you're just kind of stuck in this area.
What were you running from, stranger? And then they just have to stop here at the border because they're not allowed into Canada because they probably all have records.
But the weird thing about that is it's not like they're, Bonnie and Clyde, and they're trying to get away from anything.
Right.
They just physically, there's like mountains and there's a border and there's some water. So they just can't go any farther.
Yeah, so no Street Freaks interactions, and not a lot of weird people doing crazy things around me lately. Everyone's just kind of chilling out. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm back at work, so I get to walk on the street where there are a lot of prostitutes and junkies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing them, but I haven't had any interactions.
I still have never really seen the streetwalkers in Bellingham like you have.
Well, if you hang
I guess
out
there's
there long
only
enough,
one street in Bellingham where they would congregate.
I
but-
think that is the only place where they actually like walk up and down the street.
Yeah, I might have to, if I'm not getting my Street Freak fix weekly, I might have to go hang out.
Don't start soliciting prostitutes.
I'm not going to
try
solicit
a street
them.
freak situation.
I'll wait for them to try to solicit me.
The other thing is they don't do the over the top thing you might see in big cities where they wear outlandish outfits,
Like a
so
halter top with a fur coat over
it's just
top
like
and like
some kind
fishnet
of
stockings.
Yeah, sickly woman just walking back and forth.
Well, because
back
they're
and
all
forth.
meth heads, right? They're not like hot young 19-year-olds who got picked up by some pimp when they got off the bus at the bus station.
No,
He's
they're
like, hey,
they're
baby, want to earn some money?
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been in other cities and you see prostitutes that actually look like a woman, walking around. I mean, you have too, right?
Well, when I lived in L.A., the only prostitutes I ever saw walking the streets were male transvestite prostitutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You didn't see any like okay-looking women walking around?
I think they're all like call girls.
I know
there.
I've seen some in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Vancouver's actually kind of famous for having
Vancouver's famous for heroin and prostitutes.
okay prostitutes too.
Yeah.
Not in the like Skid Row area, but in other areas. So you'll see some prostitutes sometimes.
Right.
Bellingham, it seems to be strictly, junkies, really desperate junkies who live in those junkie motels.
Any of you wealthier, upper class sex tourists
Who
are going to, you spent time in Bangkok having sex with 14-year-old girls. You don't want to come to Bellingham.
This is a really low rent place.
This is not part of the tour, the international sex tour. You don't want to come
it's
here.
not. Yeah, you're going to be very disappointed. It's like if you were, as people go on food tours, maybe they go to Italy and Asia to have lovely. You don't want to come here looking for fresh young prostitutes.
I think is
no, or any. Yeah, it's a lot of drug addiction.
This has been a public service announcement from the Warren and Bradley Show.
I think. It probably is. Bellingham through the back door, but not in the way you want.
You said back door. So as I was saying, not a lot of weird encounters with me lately, and not a lot of people being mean or rude, except I did have one guy, an angry black man, who accosted me on the street. I was trying to hold the door open for him. I was in the mini mart, and there was a weird homeless guy in front of me in line who was doing the whole scratch ticket thing that drives me insane, where
he gets the ticket and scratches it in line as after he gets it.
He first of all, he had his EBT card or whatever, the food stamp card, and he was getting, his pork rinds and onion rings and all that or not onion rings, Funyuns and everything that he's buying with his EBT card. And then he got some scratch tickets, which I don't think you're allowed to buy with the EBT
you cannot.
card.
If they're doing that, they're going to go to jail.
I don't think you're allowed to get cigarettes, alcohol, or scratch tickets with your
or
public
prepared
assistance
foods.
card. Or prepared foods, yes, that's correct. But anyway, he got a few scratch tickets, and he's scratching them off, waiting there. And of course, the clerk at the convenience store is looking at me very apologetically.
Yeah,
but he
sorry.
can't make the guy leave. And he'll win maybe $1. So then he's points through the glass to another scratch ticket. So it was this whole ordeal waiting for this guy.
This is the famous situation why you have a lot of people who vote Republican, because this is what they see.
Yeah.
They see like, oh, you got money for food, so you spend it on junk food, and then the money maybe you could have spent on food, you're
buy
just
scratch
gambling
tickets
away
with.
on scratch tickets, and that enrages many people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I finally got up to the line, bought my stuff, and I was leaving. And I like to hold the door open for people,
Yeah.
So I see somebody coming. And there was a black gentleman walking up, just normal, like middle-aged looking guy.
Yeah.
Held the door open for him, but he was a ways away, so it wasn't... It
was that
kind
awkward situation?
Yeah, it was that kind of awkward thing where they're not right at the door, so you can't just like hold it open for him as you're leaving. So then you're standing there like a doorman or an usher or something like that. I was like, oh, here you go, holding the door. And he gave me this weird look, and I went, and still kind of held the door. And then he went like, that's not necessary. And I went, sorry, I was just holding the door for you. I saw you coming. He's like, oh, so I need the door held open for me.
No, that didn't happen.
Yes, he did. And I went, I didn't really say anything. I was just like, okay, and kind of let the door go. So then he had to catch the door, and then he gave me another dirty look. And I was trying to figure out, was he trying to make some sort of like...
It sounds like a joke.
Or was it like he was accusing me of affirmative action or something like, a black man needs a door held open for him.
Do you think this wasn't a homeless person?
No, he was just like a...
Do you think it might have been a joke?
He didn't seem like he was joking. He seemed angry.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't. imagine someone seriously saying that, like, oh, you know, I'm a black man, so you don't think I can open my own door? You know what I mean? I'd be like, no,
I have lowered expectations for
even
you.
people who are virulent racists still believe that black people can open doors.
Well, I don't know.
And the other thing is, even if you did like pity black people because you thought they were so subhuman that they couldn't open doors, at least you had enough courtesy to open the door for him, to help him, give him a helping hand.
Maybe it's living in this area where there's so much ivory tower, like intellectual liberalism.
Well, there is that thing, right? We live in an area where you don't see black people.
Not often.
You see a lot of Punjabi people. I've seen way many Punjabi people than I've ever seen black people in this area, right? So then if you see a black person, you're like, oh, you actually notice that they're there. And I feel like here people might make that.
They might go out of their way.
They go out of their way to be like, oh, yeah, how are you? How are you doing?
Well, and I also think that since it is a very liberal area, I think people, they see a black person as an opportunity to express the fact that they are not racist.
Yeah.
And so they might go out of their way to be kind of condescendingly helpful or something.
Yeah.
And maybe he had just had his fill of that or something. I don't know. All these white people like, well, hello, sir. And, you know,
I
you
can
can
see where
do
that
no
would
wrong
be.
Because you're black.
Yeah. It's that overly friendly thing. So you're like, see, I'm
God forbid
not like the
anyone
others.
ever would think that I might be racist. So
yeah, which is really, I'm sure if you were a black person that was here visiting, it would be nice if everyone would just treat you like everyone else and not be really sycophantic and be like, oh, how are you? Oh, can I help you? And stuff. You're like, okay, I'm fine. I can handle things.
It goes a little too far.
Yeah.
So maybe that was it.
That could have been it.
I was a little nonplussed, but I don't know. Whatever. Maybe you're just having a bad day.
It could have been a series of those things.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're like sitting there like kind of like looking at him like, I got the door for you, Mr. Black Man. He's like, look at this guy.
Well, and I do have a problem where I don't always know what kind of look I have on my face.
Yeah, you do have that issue.
I'm not always aware, where sometimes I think I'm looking a certain way, but I might be looking, or people interpret it completely differently. I've constantly had people telling me that I look angry or that I'm looking...
Well, maybe you're holding the door open and you had to hold it for a while, and you
maybe he thought I was mad that he had
like, hurried along, buddy.
Yeah.
Hurried along, get in here. I'm holding this door for you. And he's like, that's not necessary.
That's possible.
When you're crossing the crosswalk.
Oh, it's been so long. But we now have a train break. It's painful to
It's
laugh.
a coal train.
Hey, coal train.
This is a train break.
Love that. Racist. So this train just like randomly comes this time of day?
I would think there's a set schedule.
Aren't there freight train schedules?
Maybe not. I don't know.
Or does like a freight train just like load up until it's full and then leaves?
I don't know. You would assume there's a set schedule, but we know we have our commuter trains on the same rail line. They always have to make way
Because the freight train does go.
right, 'cause they're leasing it from them, but
I'm actually really laughing because
what an excellent train
we had
break.
a long talk during the train break that we didn't record. Then we started to then I thought we were recording and we had to talk about what we talked about during the train break.
Yes.
And apparently we weren't recording then.
No.
So now we're back.
We are.
What were we talking about before the train break, Brad?
The angry black man who was
that's
sick
right.
of being condescended to.
I like the idea of someone just coming to the show for the first time
talking
after
about
that
the
train
angry
break.
black man?
Yeah. That's usually a subject of the show. We talk about the angry black men.
Yeah, that's one thing. We often catch people up on things that we've been discussing during the show, but I doubt anyone comes into the show halfway. If you're going to download a podcast,
there's no way that would
there's
ever
no
happen
way
unless
in
someone was playing it in an office or something on speakers.
Yes.
Which people don't usually listen to podcasts that way. And
No.
someone stumbled in the office and heard you talking about angry black men and how you can't stand them.
I
They
didn't
might
say
be a little
that.
confused.
Don't put words in my
All right,
racist
all right.
mouth. Yeah. So you've been going to work again now, so you're actually interacting with humans on a
Yes,
daily basis.
I do that every day.
Have you been alarmed, shocked, disturbed by any of the interactions you've been having, or has everything just been?
I'm trying to do a
status
better
quo?
job because the reason I, of course, left my job was because the interactions with some of the humans I couldn't stand anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to like mellow it out and just roll with the punches now and not
Right.
get too annoyed by people's behavior. I also got a new chair.
Oh.
It's pretty nice.
So did you have to put in like an acquisition request?
No,
for a new
apparently
chair?
it was there when I came back. I'm like, what is this chair? And they're like, oh, that's your replacement had that chair. I'm like, how did you get this nice chair?
So what's so nice about this chair?
Well, it's not like, I used to just have a regular like swivel kind of black office chair thing, and this is like a big one that's like high backed and has like I can rest my arms on the side. And it's kind of like fake black leather. Yeah, the one you're sitting in right now is the one I used to have, but the one I have now, it's like I'm the CEO or I'd be a captain of industry, and I have this chair, and I'd be behind my desk with a cigar. It's great.
Well.
It's really improving things.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'll take a picture and we'll put it on the website.
You should. People would look forward to that.
Yeah.
You can check at warrenandbradley.com to see a picture of Warren's chair.
Yeah.
Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. Yes, it is Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. First story this week. I was complaining when Warren came in today because normally when Warren enters the Warren and Bradley studios, I have a whole slate of celebrity stories that I've selected, which we may or may not talk about. We usually talk about way more than is actually included in the show because I have to edit down. Just get the good stuff.
Do we do that?
Usually our Celebrity Minute segments are like 20 minutes long, and I edit them down to about 10 or 12 minutes.
It's a tribute to my inability to remember what we talk about. I never noticed that happens.
Yes, but I was actually disappointed this week because I was searching diligently on the Wonderwall and had hardly found anything hilarious at all to talk about. But then Warren brought a couple in, did some homework.
The girlfriend was reading me a story last night from Us Weekly, and I was really enjoying it and laughing as she was just reading it verbatim.
Well, don't build it up too much,
I won't,
but we'll get to that later.
It's going to be the greatest thing you've ever heard, so stay tuned.
But we found a few, and hopefully these will entertain. Lindsay Lohan, I can barely pay my rent. This is from Us Weekly. Or no, this is from TMZ.com. Lindsay Lohan's financial situation is so dire she is struggling each month to pay the rent on her Beverly Hills mansion. According to our sources, the TMZ sources, Lindsay has been scraping together the money to pay her $8,000 rent. We're told Lindsay signed the lease on the home back in February when her career was on the upswing and the money seemed to be rolling in. But I guess her finances are taking a turn for the worse because apparently the IRS seized her bank accounts. And so she's been doing whatever she can to make rent each month, often hitting up friends for money and selling her body. Well, I added the selling her body part.
When was this upswing? Do you remember reporting this at any point?
I think it might have just been when she was cast for Liz and Dick. Maybe people were thinking, oh, that means she's going to be working like crazy.
She has a job.
But the idea that someone with her lifestyle and her crazy problems is going to be able to manage and stay financially stable is ridiculous. Also, the idea that she's paying $8,000 rent a month. I guess I just assume that most celebrities own their homes. And I can't imagine the idea of renting a giant mansion for $8,000 a month. That just seems very odd to me.
Yeah, it seems like if you're in a situation where you're going to rent, maybe you shouldn't be renting a mansion.
Yeah.
Right?
It's this weird thing where I guess they have to maintain the certain sort of lifestyle.
Well, she thinks she does.
I guess she thinks she does. I don't know. I'm torn because in some ways she's good fodder for the show because she does crazy things, but the crazy things she's been doing lately have just been kind of depressing and sad and not really that zany. And it's getting to the point where there's diminishing returns on her dysfunction. And so she needs to either just completely clean up or just completely OD or something. And we'll just be done with it.
Lindsay, you can take that one to heart. Do one or the other.
Please. Interesting story. I still don't know if I'm supposed to say Psy or PSY.
People have been saying Psy. I've heard people say Psy.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Gangnam Style rapper has apologized for anti-U.S. protests he did in 2004.
Oh.
Park Jae-sang issued a statement Friday after reports surfaced that he had participated in concerts protesting the U.S. military presence in South Korea during the early stages of the Iraq War. At a 2004 concert, he raps about killing Yankees who have been torturing Iraqi captives and their families. He says the protests were part of a deeply emotional reaction to the war after the killing of 2 Korean schoolgirls. I guess they were run over by a U.S. military vehicle.
Yeah, those things happen all the time.
I would assume that most places where we have U.S. bases aren't always thrilled by it. I know there was problems in Japan when servicemen raped a young Japanese girl.
That can cause tension.
And obviously...
Well, the weird thing is those bases existed for a reason at a certain time.
Yes.
Because there was this duality in the world and we were fighting this red menace.
Right.
That no longer really exists. But, I mean, in the Korean Peninsula, I guess it sort of does. But
well, yeah.
Now, what is really the justification for the fact that we have those bases everywhere?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Warren, are you discounting the Red Menace now? Do you don't think that the spread of global communism is a problem for us?
Communism is bad. People end up in prison camps and whatnot. I just saw 60 Minutes about a poor guy who escaped from North Korea, the worst prison camp in the world, apparently, where he had been born. Because Kim Il-sung had implemented the policy of like punishment for 3 generations years ago.
Right.
So, of course, he had been born there. He had no idea there was any other world besides for the prison camp. He doesn't know what love is, apparently. Because he didn't really know his parents. He just he ate gruel and walked around and did what he was told. But someone was brought in and he found out about the rest of the world, so he escaped. He's the only person that's ever escaped.
Has he found love now?
He still doesn't understand. They asked him on 60 Minutes. He's like, I don't know what that means. So, I mean, that's where you end up with that stuff. But as far as the threat of, like, global communism taking over the world, it seems unlikely at this point.
All right, so let's close those bases. Some of you may have heard of this story. It was kind of ridiculous. A Australian morning show on Today FM did a prank call to the hospital in which Kate Middleton was recuperating from her horrible morning sickness. I guess she had a condition where she was just vomiting nonstop, projectile across the room. Sounds horrible. It's just another reason not to get pregnant.
This could be true. My inclination is to think that she's like...
Well, there's always the celebrity thing of like,
so
she's exhausted or dehydrated, all this weird shit.
Or she has morning sickness at all, so we put her in the hospital.
But supposedly it was something more severe. But anyway, she was recuperating in this hospital. A morning radio show in Australia decided it would be an amusing prank to call the hospital, acting as though they were Prince Charles and the Queen, and trying to get information and actually try to talk to Kate while in the hospital. We're going to play some of that phone call right now. Oh, really?
I didn't know they were trying to be Prince William and the Queen.
Prince Charles and the Queen.
Oh, they're trying to be Charles?
Yeah.
Hello, good morning, King Edward VII Hospital.
Oh, hello there. Could I please speak to Kate, please, my granddaughter?
Oh, yes, just hold on.
Thank you.
Are they putting us through?
Yes.
If this has worked, it's the easiest prank call we've ever made. Your accent sucked, by the way. I just want you to know.
Morning DJs in Australia.
An old 80-year-old.
What about this one?
Kate, my darling, are you there?
Good morning, Mum. This is the nurse speaking. How may I help you?
Hello, I'm just after my granddaughter, Kate. I want to see how her little tummy bug is going.
Mummy.
She's sleeping at the moment, and she has had an uneventful night. And sleep is good for her as we speak. She's been getting some fluids to rehydrate her because she was quite dehydrated when she came in. But she's stable at the moment.
Okay, I'll just feed my little corgis then. So when is a good time to come and visit?
Okay, so then it basically just devolves into them acting like jackasses. But this prank caused a lot of controversy because the policy at the hospital is that you're not supposed to give any information out to anyone. You're not even supposed to say that the patient is even in the hospital.
I actually work in the medical field.
Yes.
And I can go to jail for 10 years if I tell anyone something's happened about a patient or something.
Right, any prescription they might be taking, any medical
information at all.
whatsoever.
You can be fined thousands of dollars and go to jail.
So it was a big deal that they told anyone. And then the follow-up to the story was that the first nurse who connected them to the other nurse ended up killing herself.
Oh, she's the one who killed herself?
Yes.
Well, I was going to ask because I was like, it would be really weird if the second nurse had done it because she just was told that the Queen was on the line, right? So she talked to her as if she was the Queen.
We don't know for sure that was why she killed herself.
Well, I guarantee you it's not the only thing, right?
It's probably not the only thing. These stories tend to happen where, I don't know, someone kills themselves and we like to blame...
It precipitated it in a sense, right? Because it was the straw that broke the camel's back,
It
maybe.
may have been, yes.
But it's not like this person was probably perfectly fine and emotionally healthy, and then this happened, and then so they decided to kill themselves.
But the King Edward VII Hospital, where Kate Middleton was being treated, has written a strongly worded letter to the Australian radio station responsible for the prank. And it was Jacinta Saldana who killed herself. I'm writing to protest in the strongest possible terms about the hoax call made from your radio station. It was extremely foolish of your presenters even to consider trying to lie their way through to one of our patients. That the call had been pre-recorded and the decision to transmit approved by your station's management was truly appalling.
But this is what morning DJs do, right?
Well, morning DJs are paid to act like jackasses.
Yeah.
The fact that they tried to do a prank call... I can't say that it's their fault that the nurse put the call through. They were prank calling
a hospital,
Yeah.
and the hospital is not supposed to give out that information.
Yeah.
They did give out that information. And the fact that they aired it, of course they're going to air it because
Yeah.
they thought it was hilarious and they thought that they had just pulled one over. But now there's this firestorm of controversy. Everyone's calling for them to be fired and the radio station to be fined. And
But this is morning DJ stuff. If you're listening to a morning DJ on like an FM classic rock station or something, you really should just turn the radio off or maybe listen to something else, because it's just people just shouting and making noises and trying to do pranks like this.
I mean, a tiger is a tiger, and a morning radio DJ is a morning radio DJ.
They're insufferable.
Yes. You hire people to be obnoxious, and if they act obnoxiously, you can't be surprised and condemn them.
But it is a strange just genre that we have in our society, though.
It is.
Just
And it's weird that it's in Australia as well.
Yeah,
We've
it's,
infected the rest of the world.
apparently all over
with
the
this.
English language world.
Hey, it's Warner Bradley in the morning here on KBBL. Yeah, it's obnoxious. So it's sad that the nurse killed herself.
Yeah, it's too bad.
It's too bad. But we can't blame the DJs. They're being the obnoxious people that they're supposed to be. Another story. Justin Bieber staring at Victoria's Secret models before Selena Gomez split. Recently, Justin Bieber performed at a Victoria's Secret fashion show. This is from HollywoodLife.com.
Yeah.
Justin Bieber looked like a kid in a candy store at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, which aired on December 4th. He was mesmerized by the models just before his recent split with girlfriend Selena. Is this the behavior that upset Selena? We have some pictures here of a model wearing what appears to be a Tinker Toy skirt.
Yeah.
And Justin Bieber ogling her boobs, as far as I can tell. There are also pictures of him backstage with women in various stages of undress, and his mouth is open wide enough to drive a train down the middle of.
But, I mean, come on. If you were in this situation, you would be ogling.
Well, of course.
There's no way. If you're a straight man and like that, he's ogling that girl.
And
it's like I would be ogling that girl. I don't care who was standing next to me. I would just be like drawn to that.
Yeah.
That's not like, it's not like cheating or anything.
You can't blame the Biebs for that.
No. If they're attractive models walking around, you're like singing next to them or something, and you look at them.
Right.
That's just, I mean, they're supposed to be looked at. They're models.
We've discussed this before. I'm not convinced that Justin Bieber has genitals, but now after this story, he enjoys looking. I'll give him that much. And maybe they're growing. Maybe they're about to come in. He's got a little stubble there or something. He has to rub some cream on it every once in a while. So yeah, good for him. He's 19. Selena Gomez she's hot.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you've got this many kittens in the stable, is that an expression?
Kittens, you do not keep kittens in a stable.
No.
I don't know what,
In a
you're
basket?
racing kittens or something?
Maybe. The
This many
new
kittens in a
underground
basket?
kitten gambling ring. Kittens in a basket. Yeah. You want to pet all the kittens.
Yeah.
You don't just want to pet one. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
No, we talked about this too with like famous actors or like rich athletes
Well,
and
you
stuff.
have often upheld the idea that if you are rich and famous and attractive, you should never get married.
Well, you definitely shouldn't get married
All
when
of these
you're
people
21.
end up having affairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. As a normal human male, it's very easy to have certain standards and think that you're holding yourself to a certain moral code
Yes.
where you're like, I would never cheat on my girlfriend. I would never do anything
Yeah.
like that. And maybe your intentions are good. Maybe you never would want to do anything
Yeah.
like that. But if you were suddenly plucked out of your little existence where you have your nice little girlfriend, not even you personally, Warren, but
Yeah.
just the listener, you, and suddenly the most beautiful women in the world, every beautiful woman in the world, was throwing themselves at you and trying to have sex with you, how easy would it be to resist those advances?
That's why no one does.
Yeah.
Those people in those situations don't.
No.
They all cheat on
And then
their
everyone
wives.
acts shocked. It's not shocking. It's actually the most normal thing in the world.
It's extremely normal. So the way you preempt you cheating on your baby mama
is not living a lie and pretending
Yeah.
that you're going to be faithful to this person.
It's basically like being gay and getting married or having a
Right.
girlfriend and then like having gay sex occasionally. And then people are like, well, you were living a lie. And you're like, well, this is who I am.
Right.
If you are like a professional athlete or a singer and you're 21 and there are Victoria's Secret models around
Yes.
who will have sex with you,
Get it out of your system.
that's what you're going to do.
Have sex with the Victoria's Secret models. Pet all the kittens you can for a good 10 years. Then when you're in your mid to late 30s, then you can settle
Then
down.
if you want to settle down then
Yeah.
and have some kids or something
Yeah.
and you're no longer traveling all the time maybe,
Right.
and you start a family and stuff, that makes perfect sense. But I mean, it's true of Bieber though too, right?
Right.
What, is Bieber just going to hang out with Selena Gomez until he's 70? No.
No.
So, I mean, it's just fine. Bieber should just be out having a good time. If he, I mean, come on. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you hear that, Bieber? You have Warren's consent to sow your oats. Okay, this is the story that Warren brought in. Protests follow Kim Kardashian's visit to Bahrain as reality porn star is scorned. Kim Kardashian's mere presence in Bahrain was enough to send the Middle Eastern country into a celebrity-crazed chaos as fans and protesters alike flocked to the streets. The reality TV star visited the Persian Gulf island country to help launch a restaurant franchise that specializes in milkshakes and was greeted by thousands of screaming fans who paid upwards of $1,200 just for the sight of her walking through a shopping mall. Jesus fucking Christ. Outside, an estimated 100 Sunni Salafists demonstrated with signs and chanted Allah Akbar. According to Reuters, protesters who also yelled slurs at Kardashian and called her a porn star.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that. Were unhappy about her visit because of her reputation for empty-headed materialism and promiscuity. You know what? Have to agree with the protesters.
The thing I like about this story is it kind of sounds like a Tom Wolfe novel. It's so overwritten and such like collision of so many things happening at the same time. Like a luxurious milkshake place opening up in Bahrain.
Yes.
Where Kim Kardashian comes and people pay money to see her. At the same time, there are like Islamists and like people who love her collapsing at this mall. It's completely outrageous.
The sad thing is to see how far our horrible celebrity culture is spread throughout the world. Like, why the fuck would anyone in Bahrain care who Kim Kardashian is to begin with? I can understand devout Islamists protesting her because she is a prostitute, basically. I mean, the only thing she has done is gotten fucked on film and then sold it.
Yeah.
And that's why she's famous.
Yeah.
She's done nothing else. I mean, I guess she has her milkshakes, millions of milkshakes. Store that she has opened. Aside from that, she has sex with Kanye West, and they wander around together.
Yeah.
And it's sad that anyone gives a shit about her. There's a nice quote here from one of the signs that the protesters were holding. Syria receives martyrs while Bahrain receives whores.
That's my favorite. I'm going to get a bumper sticker that says that. I'm just going to drive around with that. That's great.
Military police dispersed the demonstrators with stun guns, although there were no reported casualties. There was no word if Kardashian was even aware of what was going on in the streets around. I don't think she's aware of much of what goes on around her. She did take to Twitter to say, thanks to Sheikh Khalifa for your amazing hospitality. I'm in love with the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Then I like the military police coming in with stun guns and like taking people out. It's great.
This has been Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
Say things that don't make any sense, and then they do things that make even less sense than the things they said that didn't make any sense. How they want you to buy them fancy jewels, but when you give it to them, they say you're a fool. Whoa, 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 whoa. 'Cause that's how women are.
For this, That's How Women Are, we actually have a message sent in by one of our listeners. Let me read it to you now.
Okay.
If certain trends, such as women attending and graduating college at a higher rate than men, women and the younger demographics making more money than their male counterparts continue, and the gender gap reverses polarity, as it were, with women on top in 20 or 50 years or so, will all the cool chicks claim to be masculinists the way all the hip dudes claim to be feminists today? Somehow I doubt it, but I'd like to hear your take on it. Thank you, loyal listener, Jay.
Well,
what's your take on this, Warren?
My take on this is...
Well, first of all, do you agree with his premise that the polarity is changing?
Well, yeah, it is.
I believe so, too, yeah.
I mean, it just is swinging that way.
We've had statistics about rates of graduation from college.
Yeah.
A lot of people are thinking that young men have kind of been left behind in modern society now, because I think the pendulum swung so far in the direction of focusing on female issues, helping girls achieve their potential.
Yeah.
And a lot of feminists would still say, well, men don't need help because we still live in a patriarchal society where,
Well, what point
do we say that men need help? And when will the pendulum swing in the other direction? Will it ever? I don't know if it ever will.
Well, this is what I'm saying. It's like an interesting thing to think about in the sense that, like, were women who were fighting for what they were saying were equal rights really just fighting for their gender to get as much as possible? You know what I mean?
And are they worried about justice and parity, or are they worried about just advancing their own gender? Because that's exactly what a lot of feminists accuse men of doing, is only caring about their own gender and only worrying about their own interests. And so they were trying to swing the paradigm in the other way, in the other direction, and saying that there are a lot of things that need to be made up for in society. And so women needed a leg up. So now what? What do we do now, Warren? Are you a masculinist?
I'm not a masculinist.
Are you a feminist?
I've had the same viewpoint on every minority, every gender.
You hate them
all the many genders. I'm all for just equal protection under the law.
Yes.
And then we just kind of let things play out.
I always tend to think that things just kind of shake themselves out eventually. And as much as we try to artificially affect the way society evolves, the society is going to evolve the way society evolves. And
I completely agree with that.
Things swing in one way, things swing the other direction, and everything kind of corrects itself eventually. Everyone talks about trends as though whatever's going on currently is the way it's always going to continue.
Yeah.
And that isn't the case. Things are constantly in a state of flux.
Yeah.
And nobody has a long view of history. Nobody can look back. I hate futurists and people talking about how, well, in 150 years, there will hardly be any difference between men and women. Like,
inevitably, those things are always wrong, right?
They're completely wrong. And why would you think that? You think that because now maybe the gender gap is closing a little bit, that means that in 150 years there will be no real difference between roles between men and women? Because, yeah, maybe some ivory tower intellectual can say that, but when it comes down to it, most people don't live in America. Most people in the world don't live in the Western world, the culture that we have surrounded ourselves with and seem to think is the only culture. We don't seem to understand that there are billions of people who are not part of this culture. And most of those people act the way people have always acted for the entire history of the world.
Yeah.
Where there are certain roles that men play, certain role that women play, and you may decry those roles. You may think that those are not enlightened, but there's a reason why people act the way they do. There's something called evolution and biology informing behavior. We're in a microcosm. We're in a little bubble. It's not going to last forever. And I put no moral judgment on it either. It's just things change.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Think about who is actually breeding. The intellectuals aren't really breeding that much. We've all seen Idiocracy. The people who are breeding are the people who you all call just mindless drones, who are out there just acting like animals, in your opinion.
Yeah.
Those are the ones having kids. That's where our future population is coming from.
Well, you just took that in a dark place there.
It's not dark. It's just normal. It's fine. People do what they do. We're animals.
Yeah, but where does that leave you philosophically, though, at that point? I guess where it leaves me philosophically is that I've always believed that we should try to treat everyone respectfully and courteously and the same, right? Not the same in the sense that, like, we pretend everyone's exactly the same, but just be like, you're going to offer a common courtesy to people and hold the door open from them at Quickie Marts.
Right.
Whether they're black or they're white or they're male or female, right? And that's, I think, a good way to go.
Well, that's what I think the importance of feminism is making the idea that men and women are equal in value and obviously should have equal protection and equal rights. That should be just taken for granted, you know? And I think we've almost gotten to that point where before, maybe in 1918, like, what, women voting? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And now I think most people would agree that men and women should be treated equally and should have the same. Most
you
people.
Still think women should vote?
Well, yes. And so I think that's important. But beyond that, I think we just let nature be nature and let people behave the way they behave, you know?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Don't put artificial limitations in front of people based on gender or race or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or don't pigeonhole people.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think it's the most sort of enlightened and liberal perspective, right?
I think so.
The idea where you're just like, I'm not solely worried about you being the kind of woman I want you to be, which is like running the boardroom at
Right.
Hewlett Packard or something. That's a successful woman. So you have to be that kind of woman.
You can get married
or
and
you
have kids
to,
if you want.
have to be a woman scientist.
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough of those. So I'm going to chart like channeling all women into sciences and stop and make sure men don't go into it and make sure they have to go to homemaking, because I think there should be the exact number of men and women in the sciences.
Right.
And homemaking, because I think society should be exactly equal in every single way, and try to force that.
Let people do what they want to do. Don't prevent them from becoming a woman scientist if they want to be a woman
but
scientist.
of course the opportunity's there. So if like you're like, oh, you're interested in chemistry, run with it.
Yeah.
And if you have the talent for it and you have the passion for it, go ahead and do it.
Right. All right. I don't know if that was really That's
No,
How
it's
Women
terrible.
Are.
That can't be the podcast.
But we sort of answered the question, maybe. I might be able to edit it into something.
Oh, you'll try, but we'll see.
Before we end this That's How Women Are segment, this vaguely That's How Women Are segment, we have an announcement to make. Next week, we will be premiering a new feature.
Ooh.
Because a lot of our listeners, they say, you have your That's How Women Are segment.
Ooh.
Why are you ignoring men?
Yeah.
Are you somehow prejudiced against men on your show because you talk about women?
And we should understand men, being men as we are.
Ostensibly, we should.
Yeah.
You would think we would. So we're now going to have a feature occasionally, every once in a while, called That's What Men Are Like.
Yeah.
And we'd like, if anyone out there has a question, perhaps one of our female listeners is like, why does this guy do this? Why do men do these things?
What's the periodic table?
Yes. Things that men would know,
Yeah.
or things about men. Write in to podcast@warrenandbradley.com.
Oh,
Ask
we'll
us
answer.
these questions,
That'll
and
be great.
we, as men, will tell you about men.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Good.
Yeah, they like to put pretty purple panties on. And then they turn around and tell you that every little bit of thing you've ever done is always wrong. Well, they like to cry when they stub their little toe. But no, they don't cry when they tell you to go. No. Yeah, that's how women are. Yeah, I'm talking about how women are. Whoa, women are. Yeah, women are. That's how women are. Yeah.
So I finally watched the movie Looper the other day. I got one of my advanced copies that the Academy sent out for me to screener copy to view. I liked it. It was good. And it was interesting because they dealt with the whole time travel conundrum, and they kind of glossed over the whole idea of the paradox of going back and seeing your former self and all these weird things. Because the basic plot outline is that in the future, time travel is invented. It's immediately outlawed, but these gangsters use it to send people back into the past to be assassinated.
Yeah.
So they can just disappear the bodies. Because I guess in the future, it's impossible to hide bodies because everyone has tracking chips in them or something like that.
But the thing is, obviously, if you think about that a little bit, you're like, well, what about this? What about this?
Right.
And then you get caught up in that situation.
There's a lot of problems, but it was a good movie, and they focus a lot more on just kind of characterization and stuff. I recommend it, Warren. I know you're not.
Oh,
a member,
yeah, I'm
not a member of the Academy, so you might have to wait for the video to actually come out. But,
I know. I'll have to go to the red box and get it, but
Yeah.
I'll do it.
But it was interesting because I was thinking about the whole time travel thing, and we've discussed time travel before on the show, but only in terms of which modern weapons would be a good idea to bring back to medieval times to take over the world.
Most important parts about time travel.
And the movie didn't bother me in terms of the science of the time travel, because like I said, they didn't really get too specific and try to create some weird theory that couldn't exist. But they did have the whole idea of affecting the future by fucking with the past. And I believe, according to the Bradley Victor theory of time travel...
I have one too. I don't know if we've ever discussed this before.
I don't know if we have either, but I'll tell you my theory, and then you can tell me yours. My theory is that... Okay, we live in our present.
Yes.
There's been eons of history leading up to this moment in the present, and billions and billions of beings, living organisms, cells have interacted with each other and that have led to this moment. And maybe, there's the whole butterfly theory, butterfly wafts its wings, yada, yada, yada. And maybe if somebody had crushed a butterfly in the past that hadn't gotten crushed, I don't think that would necessarily change things that much, but it still wouldn't be our exact present, because all these things have to have done exactly what they did to have our present. So, in my opinion, if I were to go back in time, let's say just 20 years into the past, our present does not have a history which includes me
Yes.
being back in time.
Okay, I'm on the same page as you so
Okay,
far.
so therefore, if I go back in time, the point I go back into time to no longer is our past.
Yes.
It branches off from our timeline and becomes an alternate dimension.
Or how about this? This is the difference where my theory with
Okay.
this. If you actually went back in time, it's impossible for you to go back there, because once you've broken through to the past, the past is no longer the past that produced you to get you at that point where you were at. So it's impossible for you to do it.
My idea would be, so you're saying that I would just disappear immediately or something?
I'm just
if I
saying
went
that,
back
like,
there?
if you go back, that's
past-
the paradox, right?
Right.
Once you go back and change something that happened 20 years ago, the history that produced you to get to the point where you were going to travel in time, and change it in any way at all,
Right.
it's a completely different world. And therefore, you no longer exist in the future, so it can't happen.
Well, you may be right, but according to my infinite dimensions theory,
Okay.
there are infinite dimensions in my theory.
Okay.
And one dimension might be different from the other only in that maybe somebody bought ice cream on a certain day and they didn't in the other dimension. You know,
Yeah.
like there could be that many variations. But when I go back into time, I go back to like 1960. The timeline splits, becomes another dimension.
Okay.
So our past is still our past. Our present is still our present. I'm no longer affecting our present. I'm affecting the present.
You're affecting the present that was exactly the same as our present until you went back in time.
Until I went back. And so
Yeah.
now it's a different dimension. And the things I do in that dimension, like, okay, I went back to 1960. Let's say I went to the book suppository and killed Lee Harvey Oswald before he killed Kennedy.
Yes.
Or I went to Liverpool and broke John Lennon's hands and then took his place in the proto-Beatles and became one of the Beatles.
And in that dimension, you would no longer exist in 2012 of that dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
But
that world will be different.
if I were to then get sucked back into our present,
Yeah.
nothing would have changed. I could have gone on a murderous rampage and killed almost everybody. So that's my theory. And so that in that way, I think we could go back into time and just act with impunity. We could do whatever the fuck we wanted.
It seems like you're excusing your irresponsible time traveling behavior.
I'm still affecting the lives of this other dimension, and we can argue as to whether or not that dimension is at all important to our dimension.
Yeah.
And I don't really give a shit. But
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's an interesting moral question, though.
Yeah.
Because somebody could theoretically be in another dimension, and there could be the Bradley and Warren over there, and then they travel over here and start killing us. And they're like, aha, you don't matter. And it's like, well,
Right.
to us, we matter. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So the question I have, though, is if we assume that my theory, my Bradley's special theory of time travel and relativity and the infinite dimensions theory, which I am publishing eventually, my master's thesis will be on this. If this theory is correct and you knew that you could travel back into time and do whatever you wanted with impunity, where would you go? To which time period? To which place? And what would you want to do differently?
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
My first thought is to go back and just follow Jesus around.
Yeah.
And see what happened in those, what actually was happening in those stories, right?
Right.
Be really in the background, so you'd let things happen anyways.
Yeah, because you could assume that since you went back to the past that was our past up until the time you went into it, that things would still pretty much play out the way they would have for our present.
So I just kind of hang around.
Yeah,
and I follow
see if
disciples.
There's actually the water into wine.
Water into wine.
Loaves of fish. Or loaves of fish, loaves of bread and the fish.
Yeah, the loaves of bread and the fish. I'd see that. I go to like the tomb afterwards, right, and see if he was really in there. I'd see all that. Which I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not going to like condemn all organized religion or anything.
Are you going to alienate our
pretty sure
Christian contingency here?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was no magic going on in the past. Because in my existence, I've never seen any like magic angels or magic elves or anything like that happen. So I'm assuming in the past these things didn't happen. No offense to religious people out there.
Yeah.
But I would like to see how the ideas started, right?
Right.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
I would submit to you that if we ever did develop time travel and we could send somebody back to Jesus' time, I'm assuming that it would be so cost prohibitive that it would be, major corporations that were probably funding this kind of research. They would never send somebody back to the Jesus times, because the chances of us discovering something that was perhaps an inconvenient truth for a lot of people, they would not want to have the liability of like, we're boycotting the products that are sponsoring Warren's trip back into time or something,
Yeah.
But it is a very interesting thought. So that's your first thought, is maybe seeing if Jesus.
That's my first thought, and
was Jesus.
I just want to see what was happening then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would go back to way.
I'd like.
way
Oh,
to
that's the other thing I'd like to do.
I'd go back to early. I mean, human beings have supposedly been modern humans for about 200,000 years. That's our best guess. We don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I would go back to around 30,000 years ago, where Neanderthals and humans were still on the planet at the same time, because I would be fascinated to see
what their interactions were.
If there were any interactions.
We discussed that before. You're interested in see if they have sex with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be amazing. Or, I don't know, maybe I'd go back to ancient Greece, and if I could somehow change the course of history and, I don't know, like...
So you're not that much interested in what happened, but you want to change what happened?
Well,
that would be fun too, right?
It'd be alternate history.
It'd be like a video game, right?
Yeah.
You could go back and be like, well, what if I, like... Socrates lives.
Right.
And I show up and I'm like, no, let this guy go. He's not corrupting anyone. Mm-hmm. He's perfectly fine. And see if that changes history in any way.
Drink the, what was it, dogwood or something like that?
The hemlock, right?
Hemlock, yeah.
And so then you see if, like, the history of, like, Western culture is altered or how it's altered if Socrates lives. That would be entertaining.
The unfortunate thing about my theory is that since you're not affecting our present, once we do get back to the present, we won't see the ramifications of the things we had done in the past.
Well, this is the thing, though. What you can do, right? You go back, save Socrates, be like... I'm taking off now. I'm getting back in my pod. You head back to now, and then you're like, now I'm going to travel to 2012 in that dimension. If you could do that and see what's happening. Yeah. And it's possible you show up there and it's just like a charred Earth. And you're like, I never would have guessed that would have happened.
Socrates was more dangerous than Hitler.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. He was a virulent racist. And it was
that's another
person.
Interesting thing is to go back to, Vienna in 1920 something and just like, hey, little Hitler, and just bam, stab him in the face, and was like, why'd you kill this little Hitler dude? Like, you'll see. Well, now you won't see.
No. Would be hours of entertainment.
Yeah.
Years of entertainment, right? Would you do anything else?
No.
Besides for go into the past and like alter things and then go back and see what happened?
No.
Oh, it'd be just so much fun.
I'd be going back to like 2 weeks ago. I'd meet a girl. And then I would try. Yeah. I would just try every single variation on a theme. Exactly.
You go back at Annie McDowell and you go back and try every move on her.
Hey baby, what's going on?
Yeah.
Get slapped. Okay, go back again. Like grab a boob. Does that work? Just try to make out with her. Does that work? Just going back and back and back.
Oh, hours of entertainment. But what about dinosaurs? Don't you want to go back and see some dinosaurs?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'd get eaten or something horrible would happen.
Well, I'm assuming we have the technology to travel in time, so we're going to have some sort of suit on that would protect us.
Anti-dinosaur suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so we just walk around. Oh, can you imagine all the weird plants and animals and stuff? It would be so great.
It's interesting because you'd have no idea. Maybe there's some microorganism that was around at that time that was just instantly deadly to primate-based life. Like, you have no idea.
No, you don't know what's going on.
We don't know anything about the past, really. We have these theories. We come up with ideas.
We piece things together.
We have, since humans started writing things down, we have a pretty good idea of how things were. But in terms of prehistory, we have no fucking clue.
It's tough. We have a little bit of evidence buried in the ground. We try to figure things out.
And we come up with ridiculous stories that are the best guesses we can come up with, but they could be completely off. And that's what I wanted to prove by going back in time.
Here's the question for you.
Yes.
If you have the option between going back in the past or going in the future, which one would you take?
According to Bradley's theory of time travel, special relativity, and infinite dimensions, you can't go into the future.
You can't go into the future?
No. But if I could...
we have to operate on the premise that your scientific pronouncements are true.
Well, this whole conversation wouldn't exist unless they were.
Oh, okay.
So we're operating under this theory.
All right.
But if I could go into the future, I think I'd be still more interested in going to the past.
Really?
How about you? Because think if you were somebody from 1962 and you're like, ooh, I want to go to the year 2012.
But it'd be mind-blowing.
Not that much, though. Because they thought we were going to be floating around on the moon and little...
But imagine if you were... But this is the thing. You don't have to go to 2012. You can go to 2099 or something. But imagine somebody back 30,000 years ago. You take your Neanderthal and put him in the pod and send him here.
Their mind would just explode.
Yeah, exactly.
No idea how to comprehend
if you're fucking mind-blown, you go into the future, buddy.
Yeah, but then what if I go into the future and find out that everyone's been captured by genetically mutated ants who force us all to mine salt in a colony somewhere? I mean, it's not...
That's true. I mean, it could be really dark, right?
It could be.
Especially if you go 30,000 years in the future and it gets really creepy, what you're seeing. it would be, it's your mind being blown in like a negative way. The possibility of that is much more substantial going in the future.
Especially if our That's How Women Are segment was correct, and the future is a horrible matriarchy with these warlord women who have caused all men to be subservient.
I'll tell you, we're not going to get that screenplay produced. The idea of like men becoming slaves to women and us going into the future to free men.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're the only non-emasculated men who go into the future, because everyone else has basically been not literally turned to eunuchs, but that's the way they've been forced to act.
Yeah.
And so we come with our dangerous theories of how men are.
Crazy ideas. And they start to rise.
Yes, and we overthrow. It'd be kind of like the Planet of the Apes. Sort of.
Oh, I'd go see that movie.
Let's get to work.
Yeah, I would enjoy watching those.
Are you listening, Hollywood? If you are a Hollywood executive, or perhaps a film producer, an agent, a studio head, write to us at podcast@warrenandbradley.com if you want to cast us. And we want executive producer credits. We also want overseas distribution. We want a little bit of the gross. We'll take a salary. We don't need a huge salary. We just want a percentage of the gross, and merchandising rights.
The action figures. We want the money from the action figures.
Yeah, and we own the franchise, too.
Yeah. All right. Don't get any ideas, Hollywood.
All right, I think that's enough for the Warren and Bradley this week. This has been one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
This is the other host, Warren Van.
Saying,
stay out of the past, people. It's dangerous.
This has been the Warren and Bradley Show, brought to you by Warren Van and Bradley Victor. For podcast news and information, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/Warren and Bradley. Follow the show on Twitter at Warren and Brad. Subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. For episode archives and episode pictures, go to warrenandbradley.com, and to contact the show, write to podcast@warrenandbradley.com.
In this area.
What were you running from, stranger? And then they just have to stop here at the border, because they're not allowed into Canada, because they probably all have records.
But the weird thing about that is it's not like they're, Bonnie and Clyde and they're trying to get away from anything.
Right.
They just physically, there's like mountains and there's a border and there's some water. So they just can't go any farther.
Yeah, so no Street Freaks interactions, and not a lot of weird people doing crazy things around me lately. Everyone's just kind of chilling out. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm back at work, so I get to walk on the street where there are a lot of prostitutes and junkies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing them, but I haven't had any interactions.
I still have never really seen the streetwalkers in Bellingham like you have.
Well, if you hang
I guess
out
there's
there long
only
enough,
one street in Bellingham where they would congregate.
I think that is the only place where they actually like walk up and down the street.
Yeah. I might have to, if I'm not getting my Street Freak fix weekly, I might have to go hang out.
Don't start soliciting prostitutes.
I'm not going to solicit
a street freak situation.
I'll wait for them to try to solicit me.
The other thing is they don't do the over-the-top thing you might see in big cities where they wear outlandish outfits.
Like a halter top with a fur coat over
it's just
top
like
and like
some kind
fishnet
of
stockings.
Yeah, sickly women just walking back and forth.
Well, because they're all
forth.
meth heads, right? They're not like hot young 19-year-olds who got picked up by some pimp when they got off the bus at the bus station.
No,
they're like, hey, baby, want to earn some money?
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been in other cities and you see prostitutes that actually look like a woman, walking around. I mean, you have too, right?
Well, when I lived in L.A., the only prostitutes I ever saw walking the streets were male transvestite prostitutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You didn't see any, like, okay-looking women walking around?
I think they're all, like, idle at the end of your fairy tale.
Maybe we should start selling merch for the Victorian dandies. We'll sell pennants.
Maybe we should.
And, yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Do they still make those big foam finger things?
Yeah, a big, like, foam finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, a, like, dainty one that's kind of, like, bent over.
It'll be like a kid glove with a button on it.
Yeah. That'd be great.
I like that. We got some celebrity news this week. I don't have a Street Freak of the Week this week. They've been working overtime lately, and I think they all need to take a break because they've just...
Well, it's a holiday season.
It is the holiday season. I think a lot of them have to go home and visit their families.
They hop on the tracks and head south?
Kind of sad.
Maybe?
No, I think they've been putting a lot of time in. I've had a wealth of choices for Street Freaks lately.
Do you feel like there's a fall off in Street Freak interactions during the winter?
During the winter months? I don't know, because We have a fairly mild climate, but it does still get pretty cold and wet and horrible during the winter.
Yeah, it's not like really cold, but it is like annoying to be outside and be rained on and have wind blowing in your face.
So
constantly.
I don't know where they go. Maybe they go to the sunnier climes, to go down to Southern California or something.
There has to be some sort of like annual migration of
they winter in
homelessness,
Phoenix,
right?
I don't know. Yeah,
there must be some demographic shift where people move south.
I mean, we've talked before about how we do have a higher per capita street freak ratio than most places around here, and I don't know if that's just because of the programs available to them or proximity to the border, like you can't get any further north than
I think
us.
it's a temperate climate and the fact that, there's nowhere to go from when you get right here. The only way you can go is south.
Pretty much.
Yeah, otherwise you're blocked off, so you're just kind of stuck.
Call girls.
I know
there.
I've seen some in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Vancouver's actually kind of famous for having
Vancouver's famous for heroin and prostitutes.
Okay, prostitutes, too.
Yeah.
Not in the, Skid Row area, but in other areas. So you'll see some prostitutes sometimes.
Right.
Bellingham, it seems to be strictly, junkies, really desperate junkies who live in those junkie motels.
So, any of you wealthier, upper class sex tourists
who
are going to, you spent time in Bangkok having sex with 14-year-old girls, you don't want to come to Bellingham.
This is a really low rent place.
This is not part of the tour, the international sex tour.
No, it's not. Yeah, you're going to be very disappointed. It's like if you were, as people go on food tours, maybe they go to Italy and Asia to have lovely. You don't want to come here looking for fresh young prostitutes.
Poon, I think is
no. Or any, it's a lot of drug addiction.
This has been a public service announcement from the Warren and Bradley Show.
I think, it probably is, Bellingham through the back door, but not in the way you want.
You said back door. So as I was saying, not a lot of weird encounters with me lately, and not a lot of people being mean or rude, except I did have one guy, an angry black man, who accosted me on the street. I was trying to hold the door open for him. I was in the mini mart, and there was a weird homeless guy in front of me in line who was doing the whole scratch ticket thing that drives me insane, where
he gets the ticket and scratches it in line as after he gets it?
He first of all, he had his EBT card or whatever, the food stamp card, and he was getting, his pork rinds and onion rings and all that or not onion rings, Funyuns and everything. Yeah. But I don't know what day you're talking about in reference to the day.
All right, it's Sunday today.
It is Sunday, and
it's
it is
a drizzly
December
day out
while we're recording.
Yeah.
It is exactly 2:55 p.m. on Sunday, December 9th.
Last I saw, the Seahawks are beating the Cardinals.
Oh, wow. So you've been watching football. How's your fantasy football league going?
I'm having a poor day right now. It's playoff time.
Yeah.
So I'm in the playoffs, but my players are underperforming today.
So why is it that the fantasy league, your fairy tale football league, doesn't go 16 games?
Well, because
like the pros.
Well, you have the regular season in football, right? Which is like 17 weeks because everyone has a bye week.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Of course. So if you're going to have a playoff system within your fantasy football league, you have to have regular season games in which to have the fantasy
because
football.
not everybody makes
exactly.
Not
all your players will make it to the playoffs.
That makes perfect sense.
So you actually wrap up your season in fantasy football at the end of the regular season in normal football.
I see.
If you have any fantasy football questions, make sure to send them in
to podcast at Warren and Bradley Show.
I actually don't understand how fantasy football works. That's the problem. I knew I was getting into the playoffs possibly, but I actually didn't understand the playoff structure before I got in and was just kind of stumbled into this week. And
so you are in the playoffs, then?
I am in the playoffs. I'm not sure if it runs, if it's a 2-week thing right now or a 1-week game, but I think it might be a 1-week game, and then if I win, I move on. But I'm not absolutely certain.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm,
And you get a cash prize at the end of all this.
I will get a cash prize if I win. It's not looking good right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that every Warren and Bradley Show listener is sending good thoughts your way so that the Victorian dandies clinch the top.
The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
It is magic time. Hello and welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I'm the other host, Warren Van.
It is episode 55 of the Warren and Bradley Show, coming at you on Sunday, December 9th. Is it December 9th?
Why are you mentioning the date we're
I don't know,
recording?
because somebody mentioned to me the other day that they complain about the topicality of the show, and which I guess I can get their criticism, because it's a once-a-week show.
Yeah.
And so we recap, maybe if we're talking about celebrity news or something, we recap something that happened during the week. But it's
this
also
isn't a news show.
No, it's not a news show. It's not like a daily radio show where we're not journalists. we might find things that we want to discuss, but they were complaining that, like, I never know when you're actually recording, and so you might say that something happened today or happened Monday.